Hello team and welcome back to the studio. Myself and Ant Haynes here. We are here to talk about 21.2. Ant, what is the workout that we have this week?
The workout is 17.1. It is a repeat of dumbbell snatches and burpee box jump overs. Burpee box jump overs are always 15 reps. Dumbbell snatches increase through the 5 rounds from 10, 20, 30, 40, finally finishing with 50 and then 15 burpee box jump overs.
Okay, repeat workout. Well, there's been a repeat workout every year the CrossFit Open. There was a lot of hunches that this might be the workout that we were going to see. Another couplet of movements, another kind of 10 to 20 minute time domain, not too dissimilar from what we saw in week 1, but a very different feeling. The dumbbell snatch and the burpee box jump over, not that many potential for bottlenecking other than kind of muscle fatigue and aerobic capacity. So kind of one of those workouts that a lot of folks are going to be able to do here at the RX level. So just the first thing I'm always going to say when it comes to a repeat workout is, number one, if you did this workout in 2017, go back through the training journals, go back through your YouTube channels, go back through your videos and see if you can find your last performance of 2017. Did you have yours still accessible?
I did have it on YouTube, but it was unlisted, so I haven't racked up thousands of views on it. I actually watched my video and I thought, there's no way I can do burpee box jumps like that anymore. I mean, they were hugely inefficient, but they were actually pretty fast, and I was quite impressed with myself. And it was also my 3rd attempt as well. So when I was looking at the video, I was watching, I was going, there's no chance I'm going faster than that today. But we'll see what happens in the video, how I go.
So, I mean, the beautiful thing about a repeat workout, and if you did do it, you do have something to reference. You know how it felt. You know about strategy, whether it was good or bad. You're probably going to be in a position to know whether or not you're fitter than you were in 2017. I'll put my hand up and probably say I'm not as fit. Well, my score justifies that.
Chest has gotten smaller as well.
Chest can't possibly get smaller, but somehow has. So the other thing is, if you haven't done this workout in 2017, the beautiful thing about repeats is that you have data in abundance. So what you could do is just go straight away, look through the leaderboards. If you know there's another athlete or a friend or someone you know who's done the workout and they did it, you at least have something to reference, which is going to give you some idea as to how long it might take you, or you can even speak to them and find out what it might feel like. What we also have is YouTube, and YouTube on there, you're going to find thousands of videos of people doing 17.1 when it first came out. And there's a lot to learn there in terms of strategy, techniques. So make sure, if you haven't done this workout, you've got plenty of opportunities to research, do your research, and then, we're going to have to play around with it and make a strategy, which we'll talk about a little bit later. What we're going to do now, we're going to go down to the floor and we're going to watch Ant and Alex as they take on this workout. So we're going to go right away to that. Now, both Ant and Alex did this workout in 2017, which, I don't know, what do you think? What were you kind of feeling going into this when the announcement came out?
I just remember how horrible this workout was. I also remember, and I've actually had this conversation with you earlier on, this is the workout. There's been a couple of workouts in my time where I've felt like a lot of negative self-talk in my head, and this was one of them. I will be very transparent and honest that today I also had that moment. I'd finished the 20 snatches, and I think I was 4 reps into the burpee box jump overs, and I just thought, nah, just tell people your calf hurts, because my calf is actually a little bit sore, but not sore enough to stop me doing the workout. I just thought, just tell people my calf's sore and I'm just going to pull the pin and just do it on Monday. Thankfully, that was the only time it came up. When I did it in 2017, I literally thought that for the full 15 minutes, and it was terrible. Today, I managed to get rid of that thought in my head and just push through and persevere. But yeah, it was it's a good workout. It's fun. I think watching Justin Medeiros and Samuel Quant do it this morning was ridiculous. Like, Medeiros was just flying through that, and the fact that I think his time doing it today was 4 seconds slower than the fastest time in 2017 is really impressive.
Yeah, in a live open announcement.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think my first thoughts when I did it was straight away I just thought back to my strategy, and I remember it quite clearly because, like you, I did it 2 times. Well, you did it 3 times, but I do remember the amount of negative self-talk, and I think that was the first time ever doing a CrossFit workout that I'd had that amount of self-talk.
Yeah.
Where it was just like, just stop now. There's no point in doing this. Why are you doing this? You're not a professional athlete. This means nothing. You got way more important things in your life to do than doing these stupid snatches unbroken. Anyway, I ended up persevering, hanging on, and I remember getting a pretty decent time. And I think actually that contributed some maybe anxiety to my workout today, because partly you want to think that you're fitter than you were before.
For sure.
Even if you think you probably know that you're not. Like, I know that the training volume I was putting in 2017 was much higher than it was now, but I do know that I'm a smarter athlete. I definitely know that I've done a lot more dumbbell snatches and burpee box jumps in light of this workout coming out and really refine my technique there. But partly I came into this workout thinking, you got to do your dumbbell snatches unbroken, because that's what I did in 2017, and you can't possibly do that. So anyway, the good and the bad about having a repeat workout. Let's talk about pacing here. So the first thing we're going to talk about, and of course, like you and Alex both using very similar techniques, and we want to talk about what other techniques folks doing this workout might possibly use. But let's begin with the dumbbell snatch. Firstly, there's a slightly different standard on the dumbbell snatch this year. In 2017, you could pass that dumbbell below your face, as that was a requirement, I should say. This year, you can pass that dumbbell anywhere. So typically, there are 3 places we would typically pass over a dumbbell. Number 1 is a kind of mid-air swap, which I know you and Alex are both doing. Number 2 is where we kind of lower that dumbbell down to shoulder, pass it over the shoulder. And number 3 would be basically swapping it on the floor and lifting it. Now,
which is what a lot of people would have done in 2017.
A lot of people would have done, because, and I actually remember warming up in 2017 doing that, and you coming over being like, hey, try swap it over in the air, because no one had really, that was the very first dumbbell workout in the open ever. So, there are pros and cons to all of those. Let's quickly talk about those. We'll start with the slowest variation first, which is placing the dumbbell on the floor, swapping hands. Now, that is going to be slower, which means it's probably going to be a little bit less metabolic. Metabolic meaning like we're not going to breathe quite as hard, probably going to keep our heart rate a little bit lower, which is a good thing, but potentially it could light up that lower back because you're spending a little bit more time in the hinge position.
Yeah, I think people, when they do it, like you said, it is slower, and people actually they go down, place the dumbbell down, and almost do a half stand up before they put their other hand on the dumbbell, and that's generally what lights people up the most.
Versus just staying down low and
correct, yeah.
So the other technique, which is quite often used, is still kind of a mid-air passover, but essentially bringing the dumbbell down to the shoulder first and then swapping it in front of the body. A little bit less risk than a mid-air changeover in front of the face, but a little bit slower. Obviously, pros and cons again, you're probably adding some tricep fatigue and shoulder fatigue as you're lowering that dumbbell every time, but you may manage heart rate and breathing rate a little bit better.
And the risk of the dumbbell falling at that position is much lower than the mid-air changeover, which we'll talk about next, I guess.
Yeah, so the last one is then going to be mid-air changeover. Typically, we'll see people passing that dumbbell over their head, above their head, in front of the face, or kind of the mid-chest height, but essentially you're kind of swapping hands mid-air. Remember, you can never have 2 hands on the dumbbells. It's really important. If you haven't been practicing this, got to practice as standard in your warm-ups, but essentially dropping and catching. It's going to be the fastest way to move through your snatches, but of course, whenever you're moving fast with anything, metabolic rate, breathing rate, heart rate are all going to be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
So there is no right or wrong for this workout. It's just about what do you feel most comfortable with this many dumbbell snatches, especially in later rounds when you're fatigued. You don't want to have to be overthinking about the technique of the movement. You just want to be able to move in what feels most fluid, most brainless. Number 2, how are you feeling? Some people may actually kind of move between different variations of the dumbbell snatch as they go through this workout. You may start with a slower variation and kind of when you're getting towards the end, speed it up, or vice versa. Maybe you start too hard and have to go to a slower variation when you get a little bit fatigued.
Yeah, for sure. I think also the possibility of a power snatch versus a muscle snatch, if you've got the ability to kind of grip and rip like Al and I do in this workout, and the 2 guys did in the update show, then by all means, it's a very good movement to go with, because you're not loading up the legs, the extra redip. But if you know it's a heavy dumbbell for you, it might be worthwhile just having that little extra redip under the dumbbell, especially in the later rounds when you're trying to hold on to bigger sets.
Yeah, so that's going to actually save your pull a little bit, because you don't have to pull as high. But, it does demand a little bit more shoulder mobility. So if you're tight in the overhead position, probably wouldn't recommend it. And, of course, you're adding a second knee bend, so a little bit more knee flexion, which could contribute some fatigue to the lower body.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's it on the dumbbell snatch. Something else to think about is, when you're finishing each set, you're placing the dumbbell back down on the floor. And what we don't want is to be throwing that dumbbell when we're resting or breaking, because we're just going to have to go walkabouts trying to find it. That is just very inefficient.
Yeah.
So when you're finishing, placing that dumbbell down and then transitioning either to your next set or moving it into your burpee box jump overs. Of course, you got the option of a neutral grip, which is kind of what Ant and Al are doing here, where the dumbbell is kind of face on here, like a hammer. Yeah. Or you can, of course, do the pronated grip. The pronated grip with the back of the hand facing forward probably kind of lends itself better to the way that the shoulder is built to move, but it's going to be a lot harder to do a touch and go kind of changeover snatch there.
Yeah.
Probably only use that variation if you're putting it onto the floor. let's talk about the burpee box jump. And I think before we talk about this movement, let's break it down into 2 parts. Let's talk about the burpee first. So what different variations of the burpee do we have, and what are the pros and cons of each?
Obviously, you can go from a step back, step up. You can vary legs left and right. But for the majority of people, I think they will be stepping back and stepping up just to try and moderate and keep the heart rate down a little bit more. It naturally will definitely slow the movement as well. So, just being able to continually move in this sort of workout is really important. Obviously, we have the jump up. You can always step back and jump up. We can jump back and jump up, which is what Medeiros did, which is why it was so impressive. Anyone who's done this sort of workout before, to see someone popping back and forth so many times so quickly and keep it so consistent was quite remarkable, really, to watch him do it. But yeah, you can see myself and Alex are both going for the slightly slower variation, which is a step up, and then as you go down to the burpee, we jump back each time.
Yeah, so something else that you could use, and I know this is what I tend to use when I do a burpee box jump, is kind of like a swing step, which is rather than kind of stepping up with one leg, you're kind of swinging out to the outside. Not necessarily any more efficient or faster. It just, again, comes down to comfort. That's a movement I feel more comfortable with. So yeah, there you have it, guys. A step back, step forward is going to be the slowest variation, but it's going to save heart rate and breathing rate. You've got the jump back, step up. Again, it's going to move you a little bit faster, but potentially jack up the heart rate a little bit more. And of course, we've got the fastest variation where you're jumping backwards and jumping up. And that's where you want to move as fast as possible. But of course, that's going to jack up your heart rate and your breathing rate. Now, let's ignore the burpee and let's just talk about the box jump over here. So really important, folks, to remember, you do not have to fully extend at the top of the box. So it may be an advantage to stay low when you're transitioning over it. Now, just bear in mind, staying low does mean that you've always got tension on the quads. You always have tension on lower back, which you also need for dumbbell snatch. So this is going to be very case dependent based on how resilient and how much volume you've been training through that hinging pattern. Yeah. So what variations on the box jump over do we have, Ant?
So the variation I used in 2017 was basically a straight facing jump up, and I jumped straight off the top as well. And I actually didn't really even turn in midair, which is why I was so impressed that I could move so fast when I was doing it. I basically hit the floor and then turn on the floor. Of course, you can do that as well with a jump off at the top. And as you're jumping off, you're rotating as well. So as you jump on a little rotation, as you jump off a bit more rotation to leave you facing the box, basically ready for the next burpee. And then, of course, you can do what myself and Al are doing, which is jump on, leave a foot on, and step off. That's, of course, a way to do it. And we're rotating as well at the same time. You can do it going straight forward and not rotating at all. And the fastest, and definitely the way to jack up your heart rate the fastest, will just be to jump and clear the box and itself if you want. I mean, I've seen a lot of people do that.
I actually saw there's a few reps here where you're actually jumping down. Yeah. So you're kind of like, you're jumping, tapping the box, and then jumping back down. We'll probably see it soon. Whereas ours kind of stepping down every single time. Again, like, it's just advantages and disadvantages of that. The step down is a little bit slower, but for sure, it's just kind of, you're taking out a lot of the impact that your legs have to do when they land from a 24 or 20-inch box. And that could be a really good thing. Remember, the deceleration has to happen whenever you're jumping off something. Takes a lot of energy and a lot of muscle to do it. Whereas a step down is going to minimize the amount of load that's coming down to the floor. Also going to shift it to kind of one leg, and you can alternate legs, like you said, so you're kind of spreading the fatigue over the set. So again, you just got to find, number one, a technique you feel comfortable with. So you can see Al's kind of like jumping quite far over the box.
This is
so
final
really,
set though.
So it's a really easy step down, yeah. So you're probably going to see both Ant and Alex kind of take it up a notch here. You just got to find what feels most comfortable for you. But what I will say for everyone, and we really played with this in 2017, is that you definitely want to turn on the box. Regardless of whether you're stepping down, you're jumping and turning, or you're jumping facing the box, you want to get that turn on the box to some degree versus being straight onto the box, jumping, then jumping off, because you just waste a lot of time turning on the floor and getting back down to the line standard. So what I would recommend to everyone, turn on top of the box to somehow, whether it's mid-air or when you actually get on top of the box, and that's going to actually be the most efficient way to go. Now, next thing I want to talk about, so of course, combining the burpee and the burpee box jump, again, play what feels most comfortable. You've got to think about sustainable, repeatable pace. For a lot of people now, you're going to be doing this workout for anywhere probably between 12 to 20 minutes. 12 to 20 minutes doing the exact same 2 movements, just like last week. In terms of how this workout should feel, I always like to use kind of an Rpe scale, which means the rate of perceived exertion. So 10 out of 10 is when you're going as hard as humanly possible. 1 out of 10 is like a stroll in the park. So how this should really feel, kind of if we break this workout into quarters, let's say you're going to finish this workout in 5 minutes. What's 5 divided by 4? 15 divided by 4.
What?
15 divided by 4.
I don't know.
Help! Someone!
3:12.
3:12.
Wait.
3:12. What's that mean? 3 minutes.
No,
No,
I'm just gonna get my
that's
calculator.
wrong.
3.75.
Okay, so if you have to break this into quarters, here's how this should feel. If you're going to roughly be finishing this work in about 15 minutes, the first 3.5 minutes should really be feeling like a 6 out of 10. The next 3.5 minutes is a 7 out of 10. The next 3.5 minutes is an 8 out of 10. And then your last 3.5 minutes is kind of like your 9, your 10 out of 10. All right, so just an easy way to kind of reference how this should feel, especially if you've never done the workout before. If you're halfway through this workout, team, and you're already at a 9 out of 10, that second half is going to be miserable for you. Remember,
Don't forget, that's around the 30 snatches.
that is around 30 snatches, exactly. So what I kind of said to myself doing this workout was that I want to feel comfortable going into the 40. I knew that when the 40 started, that's really where that workout was going to start hurting. But if I was hurting before the 40, that was probably going to be a really, really hard ending for me. So that was just kind of my own reference that I had there. So really just kind of keep that in mind, guys. You're halfway the workout is at the end of the 30 snatches? At the end of 30 snatches, yeah. So, halfway through a workout, guys, you know how it should feel.
Yeah.
Okay, with regards to warming up, we will be including a warm-up in the notes or comments section to this video. Go ahead and read that. Of course, if you have your own warm-ups that you like to use, don't go ahead and change everything now. This is just to give you an idea of how we would typically recommend to structure your warm-up. In your warm-up, you should really be playing with technique more than anything else. Dialing in your dumbbell snatch technique, dialing in your burpee box jump over technique, getting really comfortable with those two things first, so they're brainless, and then kind of putting it together in more of a metabolic warm-up.
Yeah.
Anything else to add, Ant?
I think just if people were talking about the performance that Alex and I just did there, Al went out hot and tried to hold on but couldn't quite. And then I went out at a very a sustainable pace and basically held that pretty much the entirety of the time.
Yeah, and started catching him.
Yeah, so Al got really far ahead, and then I started coming up towards the end. So if there was like another round, we probably would have finished quite close. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously got a slightly shorter range of motion as well. So even if we were to move exactly the same speed, he was always taking like 2 to 3 reps off every 10 snatches that I would do, just because he's slightly faster with his pull off the floor as well.
And what I will say with that, when people say, well, which one is better, which one is worse? What I will say is that when you start hot and try to hang on and start to drop off, that is going to hurt a lot more than the person who could keep it sustainable and slowly increase effort and output. So really it's your choice. I know for me, like, I don't want to be above that red line unless it's the last minute of a workout. Al has a tendency to be able to get there and hang on for multiple minutes, and he just has a really good ability to suffer. So, just take that with a pinch of salt, apply it to you and what you need and what you have to give in the day. Neither is necessarily right or wrong. All right, we'll wrap it up there, Ant. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Well done on your attempt as well today.
1 second fitter than 2017.
12 seconds less fit than 2017. To everyone doing this workout, good luck to you. Remember, speak to your judge before the workout. Put your plate in airplane mode. Turn off. Oh, make sure you have enough battery on your phone.
Put your plate on airplane mode. Remember that.
Put your plate. Did I say plate?
Yeah.
Put your plate on airplane mode. And good luck, everyone.
Good luck.